Good day everyone and welcome to my leader tier list video for the Test of Time update. This is a 1.4.0. Now as I record this, we're actually on the cusp of the Brush and Blade update, which is going to add two new leaders, one for Japan, one for Korea. But it's been so long since I've done one of these. It's been since 1.2.5. Almost a year ago that I did one of these, so I thought we'd just get a baseline for Test of Time before things get too crazy with the new update. And we'll see how we go. So starting off, I'm going to do something a bit different here and start off with who I think the worst leader in the game is. And right now, unfortunately, I think Confucius, who last time, this was my tier list last time I made this video, so as of the last update, this is where Confucius was. He was up in A tier. And I think, unfortunately, Confucius has to walk it all the way down to D tier. I think Confucius is the worst leader in the game as of the Test of Time update, and there's a few reasons for this. So Confucius has some very simple abilities. Plus 25% growth rate in cities, and plus 2 science for specialists. And that's it. Unfortunately for Confucius, specialists have been absolutely nerfed into the ground, in my opinion. I think that, to be honest, in a lot of cases, specialists are a bit of a downside, and it's something you have to plan around when you're making your cities. I actually think you should probably space your cities out more than you did before, just to avoid taking specialists. So you want to take the rural tiles for as long as you can. I think specialists are really, really bad now. And unfortunately, Confucius didn't really get anything to compensate for this. So the increased growth rate means you're going to grow to all those rural tiles faster, which then eventually means you have to take your specialist sooner. And then he still only just gets plus 2 science from specialists. It's not per age. It's just a flat 2 science, which basically just makes them half as good as they used to be before the Test of Time update. So Confucius, unfortunately, I really like playing him. He's just a nice, simple leader, and I think there's nothing wrong with having simple leaders in the game. But unfortunately, he's just really, really undertuned right now, in my opinion. And I can't think of any leader I'd want to play less if I really wanted to win. Okay, let's resume our alphabetical order here. So Ada Lovelace, who used to be in the top of A tier. I think Ada, when she came out, was in a much better state because cities were in a much better state. It used to be the case that there weren't that many penalties in general for making almost all of your settlement cities. I mean, there was a point there at launch where you would try and make every single settlement a city. These days, towns are a lot more valuable, and I'd really only recommend, in most games, for most leaders and for most strategies, 2 to 3 cities is probably going to be just fine. And in this case, you know, cities receiving plus 2 science per age when you complete a civic mastery isn't really going to stack up to be that much science over the course of the game. It's not a terrible ability, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to completely trash Ada here, but I just think it's a little bit low value overall. And it doesn't scale particularly well into the modern age because I don't think you're going to be making that many more cities in the modern age. Particularly if you are going for a science victory, you probably want to funnel as much production as you can into 1 or 2 big cities rather than spread out to have as many as possible. And you're not probably going to be researching that many civic masteries anyway. Now, the second part of her ability to gain culture equal to 100% of your science when you complete a tech mastery. I think this is okay. Again, it's just a little bit of culture sprinkled throughout the age, but I really don't think it's that crazy. This one is a little bit better in the modern age, and it scales better than this one, I feel. But overall, I think Ada has unfortunately been a bit of a victim, like Confucius, of circumstances changing around her. Cities are not what they once were, and unfortunately, the same goes for Ada. I still don't think she's terrible, so she can slot into the start of B tier, but she's going to be, realistically, I think, just barely making it into B tier above C. Maybe I'm onto selling her though, so let me know down below what you think. Next up, we have the newest leader to the game is Alexander the Great. So Alex, I think, is actually really quite good. He's got quite a few abilities here, and at first you might think that he's a domination leader, and he absolutely can excel at that for sure. But his main ability here, cities other than your capital with a wonder get 10% production and culture, doubled if they're on a different continent than your capital. You'll note that this doesn't have to be conquered at all. You can play Alex fully peacefully, and as long as you're settling cities that aren't on your capital's continent, you can get this massive production culture bonus. That's 20% production culture for cities that have a wonder not on your capital's continent. So if you just want to play him peacefully, that's absolutely possible, and this is a really good ability to do so. I mean, compare it to someone like Hatshepsut, who just gets 15% production towards buildings and wonders. Well, we'll talk about Hatshepsut later, but the point is that this is actually quite a good ability, even if you're going peaceful. However, as we go to his domination abilities here, plus 2 combat strength for land military units and an additional combat strength for unique military units. So that's, you know, something like the Immortal that replaces the Swordsman, for example. Plus 1 combat strength for unique military units for every city with a wonder other than your capital, max of 6. So this, you know, all up, you can get plus 8 combat strength on all of your unique units, which is really, really strong. I think Alex is a bit of a late game scaling leader. So he starts off with just, +2, a pretty weak bonus. So, by default, a lot of the military leaders in this game, a good sort of benchmark is they have a +5 combat strength bonus that is conditional. So Charlemagne's is when he's in, for cavalry in a celebration. Gangsters is, +5 when in an army command radius for cavalry. That's sort of the typical benchmark you should be using here. Alex starts off at +2, but he can go up to essentially an unconditional +8, which is really insane, towards the latter half of exploration and the modern age, where you've hopefully gotten up to, at the very least, 3 cities with wonders. Now, no, it does have to be cities. So you're going to be converting a lot of cities that you capture, or towns rather. You're going to have to convert a lot of your towns into cities, which does slow down your entire game. But to be honest, if you're going for the military win, you don't have to worry about your yields. You don't have to worry about your production or anything really. You just keep conquering. And to that end, you get an additional +2 Dominion, which is your military victory points, for every city with a wonder other than your capital. To be honest, this is a really, really minor bonus, and it's going to save you, from capturing an additional 2 or 3 cities before you win. It's really minor, but it kind of fits in with the flavor of everything he's got going on. So Alexander, I actually really quite like him. He's one of the more nuanced military leaders they've added, and for that, I'm going to put Alex into the A tier. I think military victories are really, really strong, and to be honest, military playstyles in Civ 7 are probably the strongest they've been since the game launched. There's just so much value to be had for capturing the AI cities when they're really, really good at building things, particularly wonders, which Alex really likes. So although he's a bit finicky to get going, he can be a really slow starter. Alex scales like a monster into the late game, so Alex can go into the A tier. Next up, we have Amina, who I previously had at C tier, which I think on reflection might have been a little bit harsh. Let's talk about her. She's another pretty simple leader. +1 resource capacity in cities, +1 gold per age for each resource assigned to cities, and they're, typical bonus, as I said. +5 combat strength to all units in plains and desert. So, this is a really, really strong ability that is, of all the abilities, the simplest, but the hardest to fulfill if you're just fighting someone that's not plains and desert, right? I mean, it's very, very location focused, obviously. So what about other abilities? +1 resource capacity is fine. It's really just okay. +1 gold per age for each resource assigned to cities. Again, it's okay. I just think these are really, really minor effects overall. You're really banking on this +5 combat strength, and you will almost always spawn in plains or desert as Amina, so she's got a really strong bias towards that, which does help, particularly for defensive wars, but I just think she's a little bit too finicky to get going. I think, and realistically, once you conquer all of the plains and desert on the map, then you lose her ability, right? You end up just conquering the map with no combat strength bonus at all if you're fighting outside of plains and desert. So I still think Amina's a little bit iffy. I think she definitely has her place, but she's almost more of a defensive leader than an offensive one, I think. But she's really good at defending her own cities in the plains and desert. But other than that, I think the C tier is probably deserved. She could maybe go, B tier. I mean, would I rather be Amina than Ada Lovelace? Depends on the game I'm playing. But I think Amina can be a very solid, very dependable C tier leader. Next up, we have Ashoka, the World Conqueror, so the first of 2 Ashokas. This Ashoka is focused mainly on production, so he gets +1 production for every 5 excess happiness in cities, +10% production in settlements not founded by you, and declaring a formal war against the celebration, +5 combat strength against fortified districts for all units during a celebration. There's a lot going on here. Let's talk about the first 2. So you want to be trying to get excess happiness as Ashoka. This goes for both of them. To get the extra production. Now, this is pretty hard to get. Obviously, if you're going for, kind of a conquering playstyle here, you might be suffering a lot of happiness penalties. So I think this is quite good in the early game, where you can comfortably stay under your settlement limit for quite a while, and it's easy to get this free production. And it is free production from turn 1. As soon as you settle your city, as long as you're on fresh water, you're probably going to be having some excess happiness pretty easily. So for most of Antiquity, this is a pretty decent bonus, but I think it's kind of drops off quite quick once you actually get stuck in and start conquering. Now, +10% production instead of self-founded by you, this has benefited greatly from a recent change they made where this used to be if it was only a settlement not founded by you in that age. So when you transitioned from Antiquity to Exploration, all of the cities that you conquered in Antiquity now counted as your cities. That is no longer the case. So you get to keep that effect throughout the game. And this is where I think Ashoka World Conqueror really shines. 10% production in all the settlements you conquer for the rest of the game is a lot of gold if you keep them as towns, because production gets converted to gold in towns. And if you take a really good capital or two and you convert that into your city, for the rest of the game, that city has just a permanent 10% production bonus, which is really, really strong. So I think already Ashoka's pretty good, just looking at these two. Then we get down here. So when you declare a formal war, you get a celebration for free. That's really good to get more social policies. And by the way, the next update, Brush and Blade, is shaking up how celebrations work. So it sounds like there's going to be some benefit to starting a new celebration if you're already in one, where right now there isn't. Either way, this is a really good way to keep up, social policy cards, keep expanding your government. Even if you are ending up quite unhappy, you can keep getting celebrations regardless as Ashoka. Really, really strong ability. And to top it all off, +5 combat strength against fortified districts for all units during a celebration. Again, just really, really helpful for knocking out walls. The AI, this tier list kind of assumes you're playing on deity and single player, by the way. Sorry, multiplayers. But the AI loves to spam walls, right? As soon as they unlock masonry, they build ancient walls in every single district in their empire, which is really frustrating, but this helps a lot. So Ashoka World Conqueror, I think, he was in A tier in the last tier list. I don't think that's changed much at all. I think he can happily go up next to Alex here, probably, in a similar sort of vein as Alex. Alex, however, gets, plus 10% culture as well. And he has the possibility of doubling it, which just goes to show how good Alex is. I mean, maybe Alex could end up in S tier. We'll see. We might make some last minute adjustments, but Ashoka World Conqueror is a really, really solid leader for conquering, as you'd expect. Moving over to Ashoka World Renouncer, who unfortunately has been nerfed quite heavily. +1 food in cities for every 5x's happiness, so instead of production, this is food. Significantly worse. If you don't know anything about Civ 7, or any Civ game really, particularly in Civ 7, production is significantly better than food. Food is quite a low value resource in Civ 7. Again, particularly now with the specialist changes, food, you don't really want to be growing that much if you can help it. I mean, this is not to say food is like a downside. It's really not, but it's just not that important anymore. And unfortunately, both of these bonuses relate to just giving him food. And it's not even that much, realistically. His final bonus here, which used to be insane, used to just be all buildings gaining happiness adjacency for improvements. Now it's only your unique buildings. I mean, which you're not going to have that many of, right? That's, you might have your unique quarter if you're playing someone like Moria, who he pairs with. So that's 2 buildings there, 2 unique buildings. But even if they were fully surrounded by improvements, which they're not going to be, that would be +6 happiness on each of those, which, isn't just that great at all. Yes, it kind of synergizes with this bonus up here to give you more food, but I just think this is a really, really weak set of effects now. So Ashoka World Renouncer used to be really, really good at just ignoring the settlement limit and basically just being able to found as many settlements as he wanted, a really kind of unique playstyle. Now I think he has suffered almost as much as Confucius, not quite as much, but I think he's close. I think World Renouncer can go right down into C tier. Definitely, I think probably bottom 3 leaders in the game right now. Just really, really poor showing overall for this guy. Next up, we have Augustus. Now, Potato Milk Whiskey's favorite leader, of course, and he was rated as not my favorite, but the strongest leader in the game by me as of 1.2.5. And I don't think much has changed here. Now, his ability has changed a fair bit. So he still gets +2 production in the capital for every town he has, which is a really good early game effect, but falls off really quite quick in the late game. It's still decent in exploration. But the second part of his ability can purchase culture buildings in towns with any focus. Now, towns have changed considerably over the course of the game, and they've actually gotten... I think Augustus has been the biggest beneficiary of just about every single patch the game has released. Every single patch made towns better, and every single patch made you be able to purchase more and more things in towns. With Test of Time, this has basically reached this crescendo where, depending on the town focus, you can buy both Tier 1 and Tier 2 buildings in every town, depending on how you specialize it. And now Augustus will let you purchase culture buildings on top of that, no matter what you specialize as, right? Really, really good stuff. Now, the third part of his ability is what got nerfed quite heavily, but I think is still really insane. So plus 15% gold towards purchasing buildings in towns, doubled if that building is present in your capitals, that's 30%. It used to just be 50% full stop, 50% with no conditions. Now it's quite a light condition. I mean, getting the building in your capital is quite easy, especially with all the production you're going to be getting. But I think this is still an insanely good ability. Is he still the best leader in the game? I think there's probably definitely an argument to be made for it. Augustus is just so insanely strong. As I said, towns are really, really good now. And if you have, 20 settlements in the exploration age, right? 17 of those are probably going to be towns. You get a massive gold discount on all of the buildings you buy. So this includes stuff like warehouse buildings, right? And, I've said it before, but you should be buying as many warehouse buildings as you possibly can in Civ 7. Warehouse buildings are the builders of Civ 7, where you should always be getting warehouse buildings in every settlement, in every town. You want to be buying as many of them as possible all the time. It's just like builders in Civ 6. Like, you just cannot have enough warehouse buildings. And Augustus is so good at this. So I feel very safe putting Augustus right up into S tier. He can be our first S tier leader. Will he be the best leader in the game still? We'll decide at the end, but he's definitely up there, top 3 for sure. Okay, Benjamin Franklin talks for a really long time, but next up, the first of the B leaders, Benjamin Franklin. So he's received a few changes here. This effect is the same as it always was, +1 science per age on production and science buildings in cities. But this new one here, +5% production towards constructing buildings for active endeavors you've started or supported. So this is new, and this is a lot of free production. I mean, you can have 2 endeavors of the same type active at a time, and he gets +2 science per age from active endeavors. Now, you don't really start endeavors in Civ 7 for the purpose of actually getting their yields. They're pretty bad. They fall off like almost immediately. The first 30 turns or so, getting an endeavor from an AI is incredible. Definitely, I would probably support them as Ben Franklin if you didn't really need your influence, especially now that city-states scale up in influence cost a lot faster to befriend them. Using your influence in the early game on endeavors is a lot more reasonable, particularly as Ben Franklin, but it's not that much of a cost really to just run your 2 endeavors or up to 4 endeavors. You can start 4 endeavors and then have a 20% production bonus towards constructing buildings in all of your cities. And again, it's not that much influence to keep those going, all things considered. So I actually think Ben Franklin scales really well throughout the game. Even in the modern age, it's really cheap to send those endeavors out. And in the modern age, you're probably not as concerned with city-states as much because their effect isn't going to last as long. But for a science leader, I think he's fantastic. Now, the buildings here, it doesn't really help you with projects, right? It's only buildings, so bit of a downside there when you are going for the science victory. But still, I think this guy's just insanely good. And it does allow you to overcome a lot of the bonuses that you get from making all of your towns into cities, which, Civ 7 has introduced more and more of them over time. This guy just gets so much production, it's crazy. I think he's probably the only leader in the game that really scales production this well. And I'm talking about 20% here, but obviously if you're really friendly with the AI, you build up those relationships, which are easy to do with one of the new triumphs as well, that increases your relationship faster with people if you send them endeavors. If people are sending you endeavors, it's just incredible, right? Support them. I would even possibly recommend taking that diplomatic attribute point that lets you support and start endeavors cheaper. But Greece is really good pairing for Benjamin Franklin. Just an incredible leader all around. And I think Benjamin Franklin could, as a sim leader, I really like that playstyle. I think he could just about sneak up to the top of A. You could probably consider putting him in S tier. I think his ability just scales so well with that production bonus, but I'm going to be a bit conservative here and put him at the top of A tier for now. Okay, Catherine the Great, who again hasn't changed much. +2 culture per age on displayed great works. Buildings and wonders with great work slots gain an additional slot, and cities settled in tundra gain science equal to 20% of their culture per turn. I think Catherine's just a really decent leader all round. I think she is, again, a pretty simple leader, very reliant on spawning in tundra, obviously, but now that you can pick Russia from the start of the game, Catherine, as you'd expect, pairs really well with Russia, who just gain a lot of science, a lot of culture. It all kind of builds back and reflects in it upon itself. I just like how all of her abilities kind of feed into each other quite nicely. So there's not much to say about Catherine, to be honest. Look, the extra great work slots are really good. If you go hard on religion in the exploration age, which, you need a lot of mental strength to play the religion game in Civ 7 right now. But if you do, it is really quite strong. And if you manage to keep your founder belief into the modern age, it can be one of the strongest playstyles in the game, keeping your founder belief, to be honest. So Catherine excels at that sort of thing. She can just stack up so many relics in the exploration age, which all give 8 culture per great work, which is pretty substantial actually, which again, that gets translated into 2 science for every great work. So Really quite solid. I think I'm happy to put Catherine up in the A tier. I think she doesn't do anything particularly special, but as far as sim leaders go, I really enjoy the playstyle. It's a lot of passive bonuses, which aren't the most exciting, but I think she's boringly, generically good. She's moved up from B tier, just scraping up to A tier. Actually, on second reflection, I can't in good conscience put Catherine in the same tier as Benjamin Franklin, so actually I'll put Catherine in B tier. She can stay in B tier for now, for this time around. Okay, next up we have Charlemagne, who has military and science buildings receive a +1 happiness JC for fortifications. This is like really iffy unless you pair it with a unique ability, unique building like the Ming Great Wall. That can make this really good. Well, I say really good. It can make it workable. You're never going to build fortifications just for this effect, in a lot of cases at least. So this ability is really nothing worth writing home about. Now, the synergy here is meant to be that Charlemagne's quite good at happiness building to get his celebrations. Every time you get a celebration, you get 2 free cavalry units, which is really insane with civ like Mongolia, who you can play in Antiquity now. They get chariots from turn 1, which makes Charlemagne probably the best leader from turn 1 in the game. Once you get that first celebration off, it reminds me a lot of Civ 5 with that battering ram rush. I forget the civ. I think it was the Huns, Attila of the Huns, who got the battering ram rush really early if you got a tribal village, but I digress. Anyway, Charlemagne is really quite good in the early game. But this effect scales quite well throughout the game. +5 common strength for cavalry units during a celebration is a really good effect. Obviously, cavalry has basically been the strongest unit type in the game since day 1, and Charlemagne excels with them. Therefore, Charlemagne is really quite good. I don't think he's as good as someone like Alex. Like I said, Alex scales up a lot better in the late game, which is, for my playstyle, I prefer that. I don't think, I don't value these early bonuses quite as much, even though they are really quite strong. Now, as a general rule, early bonuses are better than late ones, right? But in Civ 7, you're never going to win the game in Antiquity unless you set up a very specific sort of game. Regardless, I think Charlemagne is a really, really strong military leader. So he can go into, I can't put him at the top of B tier for some reason, so he can go right here. Really, really strong, but I would prefer Alex over him, I guess. Still, there are some specific strategies that Charlemagne works really well with, and I appreciate them. Skipping over Confucius here, who already got roasted at the start of the video, we have Edward Teach, also known as Blackbeard, who's got one of the coolest leader models in the game. Blackbeard is a very unique leader to try and rank. He's got the most unique playstyle in the game, probably. I can't think of anyone else who compares with him. No, he would definitely have the most unique playstyle. So all naval units gain the Pirate ability, which allows them to cross borders of other civs without open borders. You can pillage improvements from other civs that aren't your allies. If they're your allies, you can't pirate them, unfortunately. You can also attack units without being at war. So that's his main thing. Blackbeard is essentially always at war, his naval units anyway, always at war with everyone on the map, so you never really have to actually declare war. You're just a menace throughout the entire game. Every time you defeat a naval unit with one of your naval units, you get a little bit of gold, and you capture that unit. So Blackbeard is like this. He starts off as, you have 1 or 2 units roaming around, and then you find someone else's boat, you capture that, now you have 3. And you have 3 boats roam around, you find a 4th boat, now you have 4. And he just exponentially fans out across the entire map. Now I would not recommend this guy for new players at all. And unless you are really into that sort of naval heavy play style, all he does is build boats, and he covers the entire map in boats. It's really micro intensive because, like I said, you're at war with the entire map for the whole game. Anyone can attack your boats at any time. And likewise, you can attack anyone else's boats at any time. So it's a lot of clicking. Not a leader that I'm really a fan of. His playstyle is not something I enjoy at all, but that doesn't really matter. I think he's probably the coolest addition to Civ 7 since the game's launch. He is really, really interesting, really fun if you're into that sort of thing, and I think we need a lot more leaders like Edward Teach, because you'll notice that this entire first ability here doesn't have a single plus sign on it. It's all keywords, it's all twisting mechanics, it's bending the rules of the game, and we need more of this. Edward Teach is so, so cool. But is he strong? Yes, the answer is yes. Edward Teach is very strong. He's just a little bit annoying to play, like I said, but I mean, I can't really factor that into a tier list ranking, right? The reality is this guy is insanely good. His downside here, they have to give him a downside. His +1 gold maintenance for naval units, which is fair enough, but to be honest, this is not much of a downside at all. It's very easy to overcome. Although he is one of the cool leaders that actually can go into the negatives of gold quite easily, which I appreciate, because boats are expensive early too. Either way, I think Edward Teach is an insanely good military leader. However, he does obviously require a good map, which is for him, a lot of water, a lot of islands. If you're playing Edward Teach on Pangaea, you're basically handicapping yourself. But I don't think it's really fair to say Edward Teach is like D tier because he could be on a Pangaea map. Realistically, if you're going to be playing Edward Teach, just said I don't really usually advocate for setting up the map to like rig it in your favor. But if you're going to, this is going to be the guy to do it. Probably the only one that I would recommend playing on continuity as well instead of regroup so you don't lose all your boats. But Edward Teach, on a map with a decent amount of water, on continuity, I think he is really, really strong. Yeah, I think he can happily go in A tier. This guy's really, really good. Just needs a little bit of setup and a little bit of patience as well. But super fun leader. We need more leaders like Edward Teach. Okay, next up is the first of the Friedrich. So Friedrich Baroque, who used to be super cheesy, right? Back when you only needed 15 great works in the modern age to essentially win the game, Friedrich Baroque was had one really good playstyle that works well for him. So how is Friedrich doing these days? He's more or less the same. You gain a great work whenever you capture someone for the first time. +1 culture per age on display great works is just whatever. That's a really minor amount of culture from great works. You compare to someone like Catherine, who's just straight up better. And you gain an infantry unit whenever you complete a civic mastery or construct a culture building. Infantry units typically aren't great, so again, you got to kind of pair this guy with someone like Persia, who gets immortals for their infantry units. Then you at least aren't just making basic infantry units. But look, I think Friedrich is unfortunately his one cheesy strategy kind of got ruined, which was fair enough. It was not great for the game. The old victory conditions weren't great. I mean, don't get me started. The new ones aren't good either, right? In my opinion, that's a whole different video. But I think Friedrich Baroque is he's kind of like a boring. I don't find him particularly interesting. I don't really want to. He's doing his whistling thing, by the way. This is really cool. He whistles the main theme. Anyway, I think he's just a really boring leader. Weak effects, weak everything. To be honest, if there was any leader that I really didn't want to play, if I had to go like a domination game, which I already don't want to be doing, this guy would probably be at the bottom of the list. I really just, there's just nothing to enjoy about him. Now, granted, like he's still pretty good, I think. He's, about as good as Amina, checks out to me, in the sense that dominating the world is a really good way to win a culture victory still, because you can just bring everyone else down to your level. And as you're doing that, you're getting all those free great works, which means you don't have to play the religion game as much, which I guess is nice in that sense. But Friedrich Baroque, I think he's just fine. He's just okay. Now, Friedrich Oblique, on the other hand, is the science variant, where Baroque was the culture variant. But look at this first ability. Army commanders start with a merit commendation, granting them +1 command radius. That is a really good start for your commanders. Now, to be honest, technically, I don't think command radius is actually that good in the early game. It's more of just a convenience feature, but it is such a good convenience feature. Having the extra radius just makes your life so much easier in the early game when you don't have that many units to begin with, but it's still really nice. Particularly the fact that when you attack with a unit, like an infantry unit, for example, if it finishes the combat outside of the radius, so 3 tiles away, you don't get the XP. It depends on where the battle finishes, not where it starts. So having the extra radius is really good for that. And he gets infantry unit every time you complete a tech mastery or a science building. So again, kind of the counterpart to Baroque here. And +2 science per age for each commendation earned by your commanders. So commendation is the one at the bottom of the commander tree, right? The +5 combat strength from order. Or this one here, +1 command radius. That's commendation. So you do get this science bonus right from when you build your first commander, which is pretty cool. But this is really minor. I mean, even in the most domination of domination games, a level 20 army commander might be... A level 20 army commander is still pretty rare, and it takes a long time to get to that point. And at that point, you might have 4 commendations. So, in the exploration age, that's going to be 16 science from that commander. I think it's just a really small amount of science. Kind of an interesting idea to have a leader focused around commendations, but there's just not enough to this right now. Either way, I like him a lot more than Baroque. So because of the +1 command radius effect, I think I'll happily put him into B tier. It's kind of hard to put him next to Charlemagne. I don't think he's really that good, but I think he's a lot better than the blue one realistically. So I had this guy in A tier last time around. Not much has actually changed with him, so surprised I'm dropping him down, but I do think it's fair enough. the command radius, like, we got to be honest, it's not actually that good. It's just really convenient. Now, as the game goes on, it gets a lot better, but by that point, you probably already you would have already had the upgrade for the command radius. And after the first 2 commendations, I think they drop in value very, very quickly. The other 3 aren't that insane. The +1 movement's pretty good, but either way, I'm rambling a bit. So I can go into B tier. All right, Genghis Khan, the big Khan himself. So this guy is very, very comparable to Charlemagne right off the bat. He's all about cavalry and, well, let's talk about it. +3 combat strength for cavalry, and it's just straight up. That's flat. Or +5 if you're in the radius of an army commander, which is really easy to do, as we've talked about. Army commanders have +1 movement even when no units are packed into them. Just an okay sort of effect. This just helps your army commanders get around. It's fine. But this does sort of play into this one down here. Once per age, now this is worded a bit ambiguously. Once per age, army commanders can use the convert independence action to convert adjacent independent military units to your control. So this is the convert barbarian effect from Civ 6, if you're familiar with that. Essentially just means you can, walk your commander near a hostile power and use this button, and all of the units turn into your units. Now, this is not per commander. This should essentially read, once per age, an army commander can use this effect. So you get to use this once. And to be fair, it's a really good early game boost. I mean, if you manage to capture 2 units with this, which is I'd say is about expected, you're doing pretty well. If you manage to capture another army commander with this, you're doing really well, so you can kind of do an insight raid to try and get that to happen. Now, I think Genghis Khan, if you compare him to Charlemagne, he gets the +5 combat strength for cavalry units a lot easier than Charlemagne does. Yeah, you're going to be having, your units within the radius of an army commander for the entirety of the game. So I basically consider this to just be straight up +5 combat strength in general for your cavalry units. The other effects are just sort of icing on the top in my experience. So this guy, as always, I think can go right next to Charlemagne. I think he's just ever so slightly worse potentially because Charlemagne keeps getting those +2 cavalry units every celebration, whereas Genghis potentially just gets a really quick boost in the early game in terms of converting those independent units over to his side. So these two, I think, are always going to be right next to each other as they are. 2 really solid cavalry leaders. And next up we have Gilgamesh. So this is the leader that came free with the test of time update. So everyone has Gilgamesh if you log into the game right now, no matter what. And Gilgamesh is going to make so many noises I'm talking here, so apologies in advance. He's got the biggest, oath smile you've ever seen. Anyway, +2 war support when in only 1 alliance, which is pretty good. When one of your military units defeats an enemy unit, gain influence equal to half of that defeated unit's combat strength. This is okay. It's a worse version of one of the leaders we'll talk about a bit later down here called Lakshmibai. Gilgamesh is okay, so this is pretty good. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting. All basic endeavors are automatically unlocked, and endeavors with allies don't count against the limit of having 1 endeavor of a given type active at a time. Allies can support your endeavors for free. It's a lot of words. What this means is that if you have a military aid endeavor running with your ally, you can start another military aid endeavor with someone else. Now, you can get a little bit crazy with this, right? So if you have 8 people on a map, you're one of them, and you ally with 5 people, right? Which is a bit, that's not going to happen very often, but every ally you get means you can keep getting more and more military aid endeavors, and your units get you a lot of influence as you fight, right? So it's not that hard to maintain these. But you can stack up so many military aid endeavors. Gilgamesh gets a little bit crazy, so that's one way of playing him. Or you can go down the best friend route, right? Which is, to keep in 1 alliance, you get your +2 war support, which, war support is very valuable, obviously. But Gilgamesh is kind of one of these trickier leaders to play. He focuses a lot on diplomacy, one of the few leaders that actually really earns this diplomatic tag, unlike a lot of other leaders. I like how it gives you a tooltip here to show you, sure enough, this is militaristic and diplomatic. Anyway, Gilgamesh is very interesting. I think it's, again, one of the better leaders they've added in terms of the effects. Kind of curious that he has these 2 unique playstyles you can sort of muck around with as you play him. You can transition between those as well. Like in the early game, I think it's going to be a lot better to just stick around with 1 alliance. And then in the exploration and modern age, you can transition to have more and more friends as the game goes on. But how strong is Gilgamesh? I think quite strong. I mean, you can stack up so much combat strength with him if you play it well. But I think it's quite conditional to get, and a lot, kind of, the stars do have to kind of align for him to get all that combat strength, and you have to spend a lot of influence to get there as well. And as you conquer the map, people are going to like you less and less generally. You're going to run out of allies as you potentially take over their lands. So I think Gilgamesh can go solidly in the B tier. He's a really, really good military leader. Maybe I'm underselling him a bit here. Maybe I need more experience, but I just think he takes a lot to actually work, but he can absolutely pop off. He can be probably the best military in the game. It's just, it really depends. So I think B tier is a fair spot for him. All right, next up we have Harriet Tubman, everyone's favorite leader who's never crashed her train. Plus 100% influence, so half price, towards initiating espionage actions. You gain a migrant in the capital whenever you complete an espionage action without being detected. This second sentence is new. Now, there's still no way to influence espionage at all. You can't really change the success rate. It's just 50% straight up. Unless they're counter-spying you, I think it goes down. Either way, it's pretty RNG, and the effect isn't even that great when it goes off. Espionage takes, on average, 21 turns to complete. So, getting, say, 2 migrants every 21 turns, that's all right. It's fine. But as for the actual espionage itself, I've always been a bit of a fan of espionage. I think I probably rate it higher than some other people. Again, now that city-states have been nerfed again, I think espionage becomes more of a competitive option for using your influence. And with the AI now that gets some pretty insane yields with Test of Time, they're a lot more competitive when it comes to, at least on paper, keeping up with you. Spying on them can just give you a free tech every 20 turns, which again, isn't that great, but 1 free tech in Civic every 20 turns, if we average that out, right? Let's just say one unlock every 10 turns. That's pretty good, and it's really cheap to do. Now, you do still get the negative influence cost while these espionage actions are running, and if you're detected, you lose even more influence per turn. But yeah, I think this effect is better than people give it credit for. Now, move on to a main effect here, which he's infamous for. Gain 5 war support on all wars declared against you. Note that it says all wars, right? So if you join an allies war against Harriet, right, you will get that -5 war support as well. Very important to keep that in mind. You wouldn't want to forget that. This is a really good effect in terms of totaling. So I've always rated this quite highly. Even in single player, what this means is that you basically don't have to build an army, which I rate quite highly because, if you're building units, one, they sometimes have a maintenance cost, right? So not in the super early game, but most units as you go along have a maintenance cost. So you're losing gold, you're spending production on those units, and you're not producing buildings, right? And getting your yields up. So I think Harriet is really, really good at settling with impunity. And if the AI does declare war on you, they probably just destroy their economy, destroy their entire empire, really. And then what the AI tends to do after that is try to piece you out really, really quickly because they panic and think my whole empire is revolting against me because of this awful war support. So they try to piece you out, and they'll probably just give you a free city most of the time just to end the war. So because of the way the AI plays against Harriet, I think she's a lot better than she kind of seems on paper. When I think, in multiplayer, maybe she's more, beneficial there, this effect. But I think it's really good. And as just, cherry on top, vegetated terrain does not end unit movement. A surprisingly good effect. There's a lot of vegetated terrain in Civ 7. So, this just gets your settlers, your merchants where they're going, 1-2 turns faster. But that sort of snowballs quite quickly, I find. Getting your settler, to its spot 1 turn faster. You settle your city 1 turn sooner. Everything, that's what Civ's all about, is building these little advantages into big ones. And Harriet helps with that a lot. So I think she's really, really good. Now, I used to have her before Augustus became insane as the best leader in the game, which was a bit controversial. And I don't think I can comfortably say that anymore. I still really like Harriet, but I think S tier might be a little bit extreme for the bonuses she has, even though I think she just basically lets you play the game however you want. You're still playing the game with basically no bonuses to science or culture or gold or anything like that. Settlement limit, nothing. So I think A tier is still maybe a little bit generous, but I just really like Harriet Tubman, so she can go in A tier. Okay, next up we have Hatshepsut, who has benefited from some of the changes in the game. She herself is more or less untouched. +1 culture per age from a unique resource. Kind of trash. There's a really, average ability. The fact that this says unique resource is still a bit crazy to me. Anyway, +15%, her other effect here, +15% production towards constructing buildings and wonders in cities adjacent to navigable rivers. This is kind of like the meat and potatoes of her ability. I mean, it's basically all she has. But that's a decent effect. Spawn dependent, obviously. If you don't start near, hopefully, at least a couple good navigable rivers, then you're basically screwed. You're playing a leader with no abilities. But assuming you get that, which is very likely with a spawn bias, then you kind of have a permanent 15% production towards buildings and wonders, which is pretty good. Especially now that wonders are a lot more competitive to get, and they're also a lot more valuable with the new culture win. Now, she's pretty good, I'd say, overall at generally going for a culture win. Spamming wonders is a really, really good way to win a culture victory now. Probably the most straightforward, simplest, and possibly most effective way to win a culture victory is just by doing that, because there's so many triumphs that reward you with culture points and production and more culture from wonders. So I think Hatshepsut's a very simple leader, but like I said, she's benefited from some of the changes in Test of Time immensely. So I think she can comfortably move up to the B tier. She's moved up from C, where she was before. Back when wonders, I mean, the actual effects of wonders in Civ 7 still aren't really that great. Not as game-changing or as impactful as previous Civ games, but you get a lot of victory points for them now. So, Hatshepsut, congrats on your promotion. You're up to B tier. Now we're getting to some of my favorite leaders throughout the next sort of stretch here. We have Himiko High Shaman, who is not included in that list of my favorite leaders. Plus 2 happiness per age on happiness and diplomacy buildings, doubled if a building is both. It's a happiness effect, which is more valuable than it was once upon a time, but happiness is still realistically quite a low value resource. The reason you want that, and she has an effect here as well, production towards constructing happiness and diplomacy buildings, doubled if it's both, is for this effect. That's basically all she has is 15% culture, but minus 15% science. And these effects are doubled on a celebration. So plus 30% culture and minus 30% science for, let's say, the entire game, because it's very easy to change celebrations. So how good is that effect? If all Himiko said was one line that said 30% extra culture and minus 30% science, how good would that be? Because that's basically what it is. The answer, I think, is okay. In antiquity, she really suffers, and even in exploration, I would say she suffers as well. The fact that all of the culture buildings are in the science tree is what really sets High Shaman back, in my opinion. I think she's pretty good. Like, you basically just raw dogging the whole game by just getting a ridiculous amount of culture. I mean, all she does is just have a stupid amount of culture per turn. That's High Shaman. And is that a valid playstyle? Yeah, it kind of is. Every time you finish a future civic, you get tourism for that. You obviously, unlock more civics in the next stage as well. And once you get to the modern age, completing the final civic there gets you a artifact, which again is more tourism. So there's a decent amount of tourism to be had from just rushing through the culture tree as fast as you can, getting to stuff like the World's Fair, getting to all the wonders first, even though you can't build them very fast like Hatshepsut can. You can get there so much earlier than everyone else from your culture that it's, I think High Shaman works in spite of her abilities, I would say. I've come around to her a lot. I used to think this was she was one of the worst leaders in the game. I think just getting straight up insane culture per turn is now a lot more valid than it used to be. I mean, I would say the old culture victory was more like an economic victory where it was more about how much gold you had to buy explorers. Now, not so much. So Himiko High Shaman, I think she's good as Hatshepsut. Probably, maybe a little bit worse. But there you go. I think, B tier just. I was tempted to put her in C tier, which I might do on reflection, but she's okay. I don't like her at all, but I gotta respect the hustle. She's just a culture powerhouse. Speaking of powerhouses, we have, maybe my favorite leader in the game, Himiko, Queen of War. Himiko is, one of the very rare in Civ 7 sim leaders, proper sim leaders, a bit like Ben Franklin, where she just wants to chill, do her own thing, stay friendly with the whole world, and get a ridiculous amount of science from doing that. Start at the bottom here. So she can support endeavors for free. Now they added this new part here where you're rejecting, endeavors cost double influence. You're never going to be doing that. So that's, ignore this. I like that they added it, but it doesn't come into play. So you can support every endeavor that comes your way. This is an insanely good way to build relationships with people and get a ton of really good yields in the early game. You want to be meeting people as quick as you can as Himiko, so scout fast. As you do that, you get +4 science per age for every leader that you're friendly or helpful with. Really easy to do on Himiko. Queen of War is so good at making everyone friendly. And then, as you get really friendly with people, you get a unique endeavor called Friend of Way that gives you both plus 25% science across your empire. So Himiko Queen of War is, High Shaman comes with the downside of, getting this ridiculous culture at the cost of your science. Queen of War just gets plus 25% science. She is so good. I almost think that she should have the culture downside somehow, but I don't want to give them any ideas because I really like Queen of War. She is my favorite leader in the game when it comes to science and just playing SimCity. She's just so good at that. And definitely for new players, this is the easiest leader by far to do well with, I think, because, people send you stuff, you just support it. Every time you just support it and they'll love you for it. You probably won't have to declare war on anyone the whole game. No one's likely to declare war on you as long as you don't play too recklessly with your settlements. She's just really, really solid and really easy and really fun to play, and I like that. And you are going to need a lot of science to win the new science victory in Test of Time. Considering you can't win into the modern age, you have to be pretty quick as those other pesky victory conditions keep getting easier and easier. The science one, not so much, but Himiko Queen of War I still think is so good. Such a fun leader. Straight up to S tier for the queen. Okay, next up we have Ibn Battuta, who is, he's a cool guy. I think he's a fun leader. So gains 2 wildcard attribute points after the first civic in every age. So wildcard attribute points are pretty strong and they're a lot rarer than they once were, attribute points in general. Considering you don't get these for free on every age transition now, attribute points are a lot more valuable in the Test of Time update compared to what they were before. Particularly, I'm thinking about stuff like getting to the expansionist tree near the bottom, getting the card that gives all of your towns 15% to all their yields or 30% in distant lands is really, really strong. But just a very flexible leader all around. He's got this wild card tag, which I think is really cool. More leaders like this that are a bit random, like him. Not random, but, unique. +1 side for all units, just a really good utility in antiquity and exploration as well. Really good for scouting. And, this is the kind of ability that's really understatedly powerful. Again, a bit similar to Harriet Tubman, where getting to, discoveries one turn sooner or getting to a discovery that you would have missed out on if you didn't see it is really powerful in the early game. It's a lot of free yields. It just says +1 side, but this actually provides a lot of value in terms of your science, culture, food, gold, everything in the early game. And if you do go to war, +1 side's pretty useful to see where everything is. So a really good effect. Just really understated. I think as a new player, this looks like a pretty boring ability, and it kind of is, but it's really strong. And he also, that's basically it for his abilities. This last one here, gain a unique endeavor called Trade Maps that allows you to gradually see other leaders' claimed land. This is really bad. Never use this. It only reveals the lands that they have actually grown to, so it's not like you're actually seeing all the tiles that they see. It's only their land specifically. So as it says, their claimed territory. So it's okay, but it's a lot of influence for very little payoff. So the B tier is starting to get a little bit heavy here, but Ibn is like the epitome of a B tier leader. He's just really solid. His abilities are all decent. Again, both of his abilities are really good. He's just good. I like him. Ibn's chill. Straight to B tier. Okay, next up we have Isabella, who's going straight to S tier. So that was quick. Isabella is she's still insane. This is not like Civ 5 Isabella if you are familiar with her there, but she basically always starts next to a natural wonder. Now, if you don't start next to a natural wonder, then she's not great to start with, but let's talk through her abilities. So gain 100 gold per age every time you discover a natural wonder, doubled if the natural wonder is in distant lands. So, you get 100 gold from turn 1. Really, really insane. That's half of Lydian line. It allows you to buy your first settler, which is really good, which can allow you to, double claim a natural wonder if it's one of the ones like the Grand Canyon, for example. You can have 2 settlements claim bits of the Grand Canyon, or more, I guess. 2 or more settlements claim the Grand Canyon to share the effect around. Really, really strong gold to start with. And then you just get more and more gold as well as you scout around. So again, scouting, really important on Isabella, as you'd expect. Plus 50% tile yields from natural wonders for every natural wonder in your empire. So this used to just be 100% flat. Now, really good change. This scales super well into the late game. In the late game, you can be settling a fresh town. I've got a screenshot here somewhere. Hopefully I find it and show it on screen. I settled a fresh town. And this fresh town was making some ridiculous 300 culture and influence or something. Newly settled. Isabella is just insane. I know that's just one town, one example, but She has the best start in the game, and I actually think she scales really well as the game goes on. It's hard to think of a better ability than you always start next to a natural wonder, and then to get rewarded even further still from that start is just ridiculous. Best start in the game by far. And she gets 50% gold towards purchasing naval units, which is just pretty nice for exploration and antiquity, to be fair, but mainly in exploration. And -1 gold maintenance for naval units, so she's very efficient with her gold. Isabella is insane, and I like that. I like that she's insane. I hope they don't really change her too much more. I think she's in a really good place now for a, easy, strong, fun, and quite unique leader. So, insane. Isabella is great. Great fun. Okay, next up we have José Rizal, so J Riz, who is a bit of a tragedy, really. When gaining rewards from a narrative event, he gets 20 culture, gold, and influence per age every time he gets that reward, and he gets additional narrative events throughout the game, unique to him. He also gets 50% celebration duration, which might sound good at first, but it's actually a bit of a downside in Civ 7, as of right now. Now, the Brush and Blade update, which is coming next week, has already teased changes to happiness, so it's likely going to be the case that for the next few days only, if you're watching this, in a week's time after the update, the celebration duration is probably good again if they do end up making it so that you don't just get the policy when you start a celebration, maybe it's, every 10 turns of celebrating, just in general, gives you another social policy. However they're going to do it, I think this is going to be a lot better very soon, but right now it does suck, so a little bit harsh to judge him right on the cusp of his sort of overhaul, but it is what it is. And 50% and plus 50% happiness towards celebrations. Again, just a pretty weak effect overall. He is a bit of a tragedy. Now, this effect is really good in the early game. Particularly the influence used to be pretty insane. 20 influence every time you got a narrative event reward. Like, you get one every, 2 or 3 turns in the super early game. There's a lot of these. But I think he's just, again, the celebration duration is like a bit of a downside right now. Really excited to see where he goes after this update. But right now, J-Riz is a bit tragic. His effects just aren't that good. They scale really badly as well. In the modern age, he has essentially no effects. In the modern age, J-Riz is basically like you're playing a worse than vanilla leader, which kind of sucks. So J-Riz, C tier. Okay, next up we have Lafayette, who has received a pretty substantial nerf, which, I mean, what can I say? Obviously deserved after I got run over by Lafayette in last year's Civ Kiv. So glad this guy got nerfed, of course. Gains a unique endeavor called Reform, which grants an additional tradition slot. Now, this is very expensive to do and takes, I think, 10 turns, but well worth it for his effects. For what it's worth, the other person can support that and also get a tradition or social policy slot if they just accept it. Pretty good. Pretty good to have Lafayette as an ally, mind you. But his main effect here, +1 combat strength for every tradition, but not social policy slotted in the government. So with Test of Time, you only get a very limited amount of traditions per age. Now, if you're playing someone like Rome, the Normans, they get extras, but as a general rule, you can't really go as crazy with this as you used to. You used to just be able to fill up your entire government with traditions, and Lafayette would absolutely go nuts. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately or fortunately. And his last effect here is +1 culture and happiness per age in settlements, doubled in the distant lands, which again is a pretty good effect. This is culture and happiness you get right from turn 1. As you settle your capital, this kicks in and just kind of gets better and better as the game goes on as you settle more. It's kind of a, typical Civ 7 leader where he's good at domination, of course, like every leader in this game, just about. And he gets, some free yields as he does that. So Lafayette, I think, rightly nerfed, but still quite strong. Last time I had him in the B tier, and I think the B tier is looking a little bit sus here. I'm probably going to have to reshuffle this because I don't like having the entire roster be in B tier, even though that's like pretty fair assessment. I think Lafayette can stay in B tier. He's a really decent military leader that gets better as the game goes on. But he's just a little bit unimpactful for me. Maybe I'm underselling him a bit. I guess just never really gelled with his playstyle that much. Okay, next up is Lakshmibai, who I may have severely underrated in my last time ranking her. This is when she just came out. And she's got a bit of a weird playstyle, so, maybe I spoke too soon on her a bit. 50% influence towards initiating the city-state incorporate action, which I don't really tend to do that much, but as Lakshmibai, it's fair enough, it's worth doing. And when you incorporate a city-state, you gain all of their units. So the The strategy with Lakshmibai is that you do lots and lots of incite raids, and every time you do an incite raid on the city-state, they go and raid someone nearby, but they spawn an absolute ton of units when they do this, including oftentimes, or maybe every time, I'm never quite sure, an army commander. So you can get a ton of free army commanders and units as Lakshmibai, and it takes a little bit to get going. It takes a long time to befriend and then incorporate and do all these raids, but once you do that, she just kind of prints units for you. And she has Gilgamesh's ability, or the other way around, I guess Gilgamesh has her ability, but hers is twice as good. So every time you defeat a unit, you gain 100% of that unit's combat strength as influence, which is actually a lot of influence over the course of the game. So Lakshmibai, very unique playstyle, one that, again, I'm really not a fan of at all, but I can't deny it's quite good, actually. So much so that I think she can probably go up in the A tier, probably the biggest glow off of any leader on this list. Actually, I used to be in the C tier in my last ranking, or my first ranking of her. I think A tier is actually a fair spot for her. Again, I don't really like her playstyle, but it's very strong. It's really good. She takes a bit of getting used to, but once you get her down, she's good. Lakshmibai's good. Right next door to Lakshmibai, we have Machiavelli, who's a chaotic bastard, but basically just a much worse version of Lakshmibai in a way. Plus your influence per age, just flat. You just get that from turn 1. Fair enough. You gain 50 gold per age. You gain 50 gold per age when your diplomatic actions are accepted, or double that if they're rejected. Which, again, very chaotic, but just kind of all right. Like, you're spending a lot of influence to do that. But sure, it's free gold, I guess. You ignore the relationship requirement for declaring formal wars. So even if you're friendly with someone, you can declare war with no war support penalty, which is actually a pretty strong effect. But it's not that hard to denounce someone. The main benefit here is that you catch them off guard in theory, and the AI won't have troops ready to go. But hard to say how true that really is. I don't think it actually works in practice against the AI. More for humans, I guess, in theory. And you can levy troops from city-states that you're not suzerain of, which, again, like, if you can poke around and find a city-state that does have an army commander for you to levy, that's pretty good. That's really good, actually. But just a kind of very strange set of abilities that I really like the flavor on them, but they're just not that good, all things considered. So Machiavelli, I would call him a very, very average leader. I could almost put him in D tier, but I can't do that to him. He's not as bad as Confucius for sure. So Machiavelli, somewhere in the C tier, it's about right for him. Okay, next up is the first of the Napoleons. Napoleon Emperor has received a lot of changes over the course of the game. And here's his latest rendition, I guess. All basic sanctions are automatically unlocked. Okay. 50% influence towards initiating sanctions. There's no influence icon here, I've just noticed. They should probably fix that for access. So much cheaper sanctions. +5 culture and gold per age for each leader you have an active sanction on, except announcement. So fair enough. Culture and gold, that's pretty good. And +1 combat strength for land units for every sanction you have active, except announcement. So he is all about sanctions, which, shout out for them lasering in, I should say, on like one unique aspect of the game, which is sanctions, which is new to Civ in Civ 7, which is pretty cool. But Napoleon Emperor is pretty good. +5 culture and gold per age is really, that's a lot of culture in the early game. That's a copy of wine. And these sanctions are really, really cheap. Paired with someone like Prussia, for example, who also benefit from people disliking him, if unfriendly with people, you can get a lot of combat strength very quickly as Napoleon Emperor. And I mean, it's not hard to just keep people disliking you. Once the AI hates you, it's they tend to hate you for the rest of the game unless you go out of your way to actually help them in some way. So I think this guy's really quite good. This effect here for the culture and gold falls off in exploration very quickly, I would say. But I think the main effect on this guy is the combat strength for most of the game. As a military leader, I think he's really good. I'm surprised they still kept this economic and diplo tag. This is, very odd. Diplomatic in the sense that he's, makes people hate him diplomatically, I guess. But Napoleon Emperor is quite strong now, I would say. I think it's very easy for him to keep up at least, +5 combat strength for the entire game with his sanctions. So I got to rank him up here with some of the other, really high, consistent combat strength leaders. So yeah, Napoleon Emperor, I think really, really strong. Napoleon Revolution, on the other hand, hasn't changed a whole lot compared to the Sanction Man. +1 movement for all land units is okay. I think compared to someone like Harriet, I'd rather be able to always get through vegetation than +1 movement. A lot of the time, vegetated tiles are going to stop your movement anyway, no matter how much movement you have. Same goes for rough terrain, rivers, all the rest of it. So this is good. It's really good, but terrain is still rough. Defeating an enemy unit provides culture equal to their combat strength. I think this is pretty horrendous. Like, it's okay in the super, super early game against like independent powers, but just scales really poorly, not great at all. And then he's got this effect down here, which is quite unique. So the first time each age that a war is declared against you, gain an army commander in your capital with an infantry unit, cavalry unit, ranged and siege. Really weird effect, but if you can manage to bait the AI, which is not hard, bait the AI into declaring war on you and getting this, fully packed commander for free, that's pretty good. You can come at them with, 2 army commanders and 4 units. I think it's just a really average leader all around, to be honest. Last time I had him in C tier, which I think was probably too generous, realistically. The effect is only really good in the Antiquity Age for the free commander. After that, I mean, it probably takes you 4 turns to make those 4 units in Exploration and Modern, so it's really not saving you much time there at all. And I do think there is severe diminishing returns on army commanders. Like, once you've got 3 or 4, you probably don't want a 5th and a 6th, right? Or dare I say, like 6 or 7. So I think Napoleon Revolutionary C tier is more than enough for this guy. Now, these aren't really in order, by the way. Some of these leaders, in the C tier particularly, are worse than others. Like, I'd probably call World Renouncer here worse than Napoleon there. So don't take this too seriously. Now, I know I said Queen of Wow is my favorite leader, but possibly my actual favorite leader is Pachacuti, who has received a bit of a nerf, unfortunately, but this is a great opportunity for me to talk about Pachacuti at length because I think he's really interesting, but not in a great way. So what do I mean by this? Starting at the bottom here, Pachacuti says that cities gain a bonus to their production equal to 10% of that city's food. So if you have 100 food in a city, that city gets 10 production. This effect is really, really strong. And compared to his other abilities, these don't compare at all. This ability is insane. It is so, so good. Now, it has been nerfed tangentially, because food towns are so much worse than they used to be. It used to be the case that, a fishing town or a farming town, it was, +1 food from like pastures, farms, all the rest of it, fishing boats. And then it was, +1, then +2, then +4 in the modern age. Now it's just +1 the whole game. A pretty substantial nerf to food. And Pachacuti was basically the only leader in the game that really could make use of food, like, to an extreme extent. I used to have this guy in S tier. He was really, really strong. Now I'm not so sure, but let's talk about his other abilities. All buildings receive a +1 food adjacency for mountains. Okay, that's, again, on him, better than normal. -2 maintenance on specialists adjacent to mountains, +1 maintenance on specialists not adjacent to mountains. That's for happiness. So specialists, if you didn't know, with Test of Time now, they scale up, so they cost 2 food and happiness in Antiquity, then 4, then 6 in Modern. So it's no longer your specialists don't have happiness maintenance if they're next to mountains. Now it's just -2 no matter what, which is pretty sad. Not that happiness is like that big of a deal, but it kind of is now if you're in theory going for this specialist build, which of course you're not because specialists are really, really bad now. So I think this ability is just like awful, really bad. And there's even a downside if you place the specialist not next to a mountain now. So it has additional happiness maintenance. So both of these effects are really bad, and they kind of have to be because this one is so strong. Now, where am I going with all this? The point is that Pachacuti is obviously meant to be the mountain guy, right? He's meant to be all about mountains, but he's not at all. He's not a mountain leader at all right now, realistically. Like, that represents like 5% of his power budget, because this ability is taking up so much power. And as much as I love this ability, I do think it's a mistake, and I do think Pachacuti is ripe for something of a rework. Because if he's meant to be all about mountains, he's not. He's all about food at the moment. I think that's kind of a flavor mismatch. It's a bit of a shame. As much as I like it, I think this ability should probably go away or be nerfed, but you can't really nerf this without making it useless. I think you could change it to 5%, but at that point it's like, why bother? Just make him all about mountains. I think making the specialists have no maintenance cost for the next to mountains, it wouldn't even be that strong. I don't know. I think this guy has so much more potential than he does right now. As for his strength, rant over, how strong is he? I still think he's quite good. Now, again, food is a lot harder to come by from towns than it used to be, but it's still not hard. It's still not hard at all. This guy can still get absolutely ludicrous production. It's not hard to get like 3, 4, 500 food in a city, in which case you're getting, like 50 production from this city, which is pretty good. So, I mean, that's like, 10 blacksmiths or something, right? Like it's really good. So Pachacuti, I think he had a short-lived time in the S tier. I have to knock him down to A tier. He's still really strong. I still really like him, but specialists are really rubbish now, so you can't really reliably use those to gain yields. And the happiness thing's just whatever. The food thing's fine. It's just the production that's keeping this guy afloat. Like, I can't stress enough how good that single production effect is, to the point where it's a detriment to his character as a leader. So I hope they change Pachacuti, which would be a shame because I love him so much, but there you go. There's the Pachacuti rant. Okay, next up is Sayyida, one of the newer leaders as well. Sayyida receives the strongest naval unit you can produce every time you succeed in an espionage action, if there's room, which is fair enough, I guess. This effect is really just whatever. I mean, getting a boat every now and then is fine, I guess. +2 culture and 1 influence per age for every naval unit stationed on a district. So this is kind of the payoff in theory, but building boats just to have them lying around on your districts for culture and influence, I don't think it's worth it. It makes for good screenshots, but consider the opportunity cost of purchasing all these boats or producing all these boats just to have them sitting around and costing maintenance. Not a fan. No influence penalty if your espionage action is being revealed, so it kind of helps with this whole game plan. And opponents cannot counter-spy you, which kind of stepping on Harriet's toes here a bit, but I think Said is just a bit of a confused leader. I don't know much about her history, granted, right? I think this is probably thematic from a historical sense, but gameplay-wise, I find her really boring, confusing. I mean, really, like, the effect here is having your units just sit around doing nothing on districts. Like, it's like the opposite of exciting to me. Not much to say about Sayyida. I just really don't like her at all. It says I haven't played her, but I have. Some things lead to level 1, but I've played them on, the workshop build, for example. Sayyida, I'm going to put in C tier as well. I don't like her, and I don't think she's that good either. Grumble, grumble. Okay, next up we have Simón Bolívar, who used to be the worst leader in the game, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, but he has had a bit of a buff, which, although it's pretty minor on paper, is actually pretty good in practice. He now gains 2 war support on wars you declare instead of 1. But 2 war support on all wars you declare is pretty good. When you conquer a settlement for the first time, the settlement can purchase 1 building or improvement for free. It's kind of nice. And you can do it immediately as well, because he doesn't really get unrest in the same sense as everyone else. You can just, as soon as you capture a settlement, you repair all, you buy the most expensive thing you can, which can't be wonders anymore, by the way. You used to be able to buy wonders for free as the Mughal. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately. Look, Simon is a very simple leader. He's just, he gets +2 war support and that's it. Is that enough to carry him much further up the list? I don't think so. I mean, it's still +2 war support, which is, +2 combat strength. Not really much to write home about, all things considered. So Simon I actually quite like him. He's reasonably interesting as far as war leaders go, but not that interesting, let's be real. So anyway, C tier, reasonably okay, not that exciting. Okay, Tecumseh, who I've had a very troubled and storied relationship with since the start of the game. There was a long time there, pre-nerf, pre some of these changes, where I said, unironically, that Tecumseh was the worst leader in the game, and I was getting flamed on Discord. I saw people saying awful things, that I was, wrong, which is just crazy about Tecumseh. Anyway, Tecumseh has been changed this patch, and pretty significant nerf, and yet I think he's better than he was. So, I think once again I'm going to be on the wrong side of the fence for Tecumseh here, but hear me out, all right? So now, instead of +1 food and production in towns and cities, every city-state, you get the food in towns and you get the production in cities. So you don't get both in both anymore. Pretty substantial nerf. +1 combat strength for all infantry and ranged units for every city-state you're suzerain of. This used to be all units, and now it's just infantry and ranged. Again, that's a pretty substantial nerf. But all independent powers start friendly with Tecumseh now. So that means in the early game, you have no threats. I really like this. I think this is really cool. It feels really fitting for his character as well. And you get +2 dominion for every city-state you're sovereign of. So, he's best friends with all the city-states, and he's the worst nightmare of all the other players. I think this is really cool. Again, I think this effect down here of starting friendlies is just so strong with all the IPs. It just means you don't have to worry about building an army in the early game at all. Like, you have no threat, no barbarians. You've got barbarians turned off on Tecumseh, while everyone else has to struggle with that. And you can always beat everyone to the race with independent powers, making them become your suzerain 15 turns faster instead of the 30 turns it would take if they're hostile is just really, really strong. Now, this is a bit RNG, right? Like, in theory, you could spawn around all friendly IPs all the time, especially if you have, you tweak the map settings, obviously, like you could do nothing. But I think in a standard game, this is really, really strong. The Dominion's nice as well, but I mean, 2 Dominions, like, whatever, it's fine. But overall, I think he is probably about the same power level overall. I think the nerf to combat strength is pretty substantial, and losing the production in towns is pretty rough as well, because that was a lot of gold before. I think Tecumseh can probably stay in C tier for me. Like, maybe he could be up at B tier now because of the friendly thing, but I think top of C tier sounds about right for him. Maybe, look, I know there's so many people love Tecumseh, but I don't see it. I think he's better than he was, particularly in the modern age now. But I still think he's pretty bad in the modern age, right? You lose all of your combat strength bonuses, you lose all of your food and production, and the modern age doesn't last long enough for you to really make use of his ability. If you're playing Siam, like, it's a bit better, but then you're playing Siam, so I don't know about that one. I still just think he's really overvalued by the community. Okay, next up we have Trưng Trắc here, who last time I had an A tier, which was that was definitely a choice for myself. Gained the unique army commander Trung Ni after obtaining a first land military of the age. So Trung Ni is a unique army commander that has a unique skill tree of her own, and the promotion tree in there is really, really strong. So you can see here, she starts with 2 promotions in exploration. The main thing about Trung Ni is that she herself can attack. So she's got the commander attack ability, whatever it's called. And you can level that up to basically be one-shotting a unit every 5 turns with her. And you have the classic, effects in here from Trưng Trắc. 20% more commander experience is just generally really good for your commanders. It's really good, especially in the early game. And 10% science in cities in tropical, doubled if you're in a formal war that you declared. This effect is a lot worse than it seems, I think, which is where I kind of got tripped up personally. It's not 10% science to your empire. It's just only to the cities in tropical, which is really specific. Like, this, again, is only going to be hitting like 2 or 3 cities throughout the game, most likely, assuming you get lucky with your biomes. And it kind of makes you plan your cities in a really awkward way if you have to put them in tropical where it's not ideal. As much as I like Trung Ni, and I really do, I don't think I can really put Trưng Trắc on the level of like Lakshmibai, Alex. Like, there's just no way, right? So I think she's just a nice, very easy to play leader, and Trung Ni is a really unique idea. So, props to Firaxis for that. But I think she can, sit somewhere in the middle of BT here. I think she's just a decent leader with decent effects for commanders and, an okay science effect. Okay, lastly, we have the 2 Xerxes here. So starting with King of Kings, who again received a massive buff this patch, or at least a pretty sizable buff. So he's still the same as he once was. 3 combat strength, +3 combat strength for units that are attacking in neutral enemy territory. This is really solid, really good. You're always going to be attacking as King of Kings, most likely. So that's +3 combat strength, just flat, pretty good. Gain 100 culture and gold per age when you capture a settlement for the first time. Again, a pretty nice effect. You're going to be capturing a lot of settlements as you go along. So it's free culture, it's free gold. Again, mostly in the early game is where this is impactful, but there you go. It's free real estate. But here you go, plus 10% gold in all settlements. So that's just general, plus 10% gold from turn 1. Doubled in captured settlements from any age. This is the new change here. It used to be the case that, again, as the age transitioned, all cities you took in the previous age essentially became yours. Now they always count for the whole game. So this is a lot of gold. I mean, if you settle like 3 or 4 settlements yourself and then capture the rest of them, This is basically going to be 20% gold across your entire empire. Now, obviously, the cities you found are probably going to be like some of the best, but still, I think this is really strong. The downside here is that they changed this last line here, +1 settlement limit in each age. This used to give you like +1 settlement in antiquity, then 2 in exploration, then 3 in modern, for a total of +6. That's been changed, so now it's total up to 3 by the modern age. So that's pretty unfortunate. An extra 3 settlement limit is pretty good. So that kind of sucks. But overall, I still think King of Kings is really, really good. I'm not sure if he can retain his spot in S tier. I think it's pretty close. Like 3 settlement limit is really good. It's still really good, I think. And the gold buff kind of makes up for it ever so slightly. But settlement limit is more important than ever in a way. You can't really go crazy going over the settlement limit like you could once upon a time. So yeah, I think a King of Kings has retained his spot in S tier. He is a really solid leader. He does everything you want to be doing as a military leader. So there you go. And lastly, we have Xerxes Achaemenid. So Green Xerxes, who, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I put this guy in A tier last time. This guy should be in S tier. This guy's insane. +1 trade route limit with all other leaders and +10 trade range. Which is, pretty good. This guy wants to trade. If you haven't cottoned on, he's more peaceful than his friend here. 50 culture and 100 gold per age when you create a trade route or road. You're not really going to be making many roads, so just, trade routes is the main focus here. This is a lot of, again, it's free culture, it's free gold, doing trading, which is what you're going to be doing a lot of as Xerxes, Green Xerxes. Really, really good. But then this effect down here, +1 culture and gold per age on unique buildings and improvements. This is nuts. Like, this is absolutely insane. Particularly as civs like the Ming, the Han, who have the Great Wall, which is, a much cheaper unique improvement than the other ones. So they have changed this in a way so it's been nerfed a little bit, because unique improvements, rather, which is the main one you can spam, they scale up in cost exponentially now, so you can't just build like 15 Great Walls in one settlement for, 100 gold each, which is what it used to be. Absolutely crazy. You can see I got this guy to level 10, which is pretty rare. Even though unique improvements have been nerfed a lot, it's still quite easy to just get enough city-states on your side to overcome this bonus, because it only counts per type. So if you build, 5 economic improvements, as soon as you build your first culture improvement, that's going to, still just cost as if it's the first one. But the fact that, you're going to be starting the modern age with 3 culture and 3 gold on every single improvement, every single unique building and improvement in your empire, is just ridiculous. Like, this guy has some of the fastest starts on the age transition out of every leader. He probably is the fastest leader off the starting blocks, realistically. Like, he is just so good. This is the easiest one of them all. Well, all of these leaders up here are really good, but Xerxes Achaemenid, both Xerxes up here, they are so solid. Green Xerxes, I would actually say, is, one of the best leaders in the game by far. I think, this is a very solid, I would call this the big 4, it's like tennis. This is a very solid set of leaders up here. Like, I almost want to knock King of Kings down because he probably doesn't belong in here, but I would call this the big 4 right here. And these 4 leaders are absolutely insane. No, I mean, look, King of Kings is in S tier as well. He is insane. This is the big 5, I guess. All of these leaders are absolutely insane at what they want to do. I mean, Isabella is just like the best antiquity start of all time. Green Xerxes is so good at trading and building up a really, really productive empire. King of Kings is, a domination beast. Queen of War, again, diplomatic, science leader, super good at just, maintaining friendly relationships with everyone and doing her own thing and excelling at that. Augustus, just like the best city builder in the game. Or should I say city buyer? Because this guy just buys absolutely every building across every settlement in his empire. So everyone up here is absolutely cracked. But that's the tier list. I think, the S tier is a little more exclusive than it was. Pachacuti lost his top spot, unfortunately, and Harriet Tubman did as well. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty good, standard distribution overall here. The D tier, I've kept as just Confucius. I like just having one leader singled out as decidedly the worst leader in the game, and I think Confucius can definitely own up to that spot. So here you go. But, that's the tier list ranking. Just on the cusp of Brush and Blade, which, as I was recording this, they actually just came out with one of the leader preview videos, and I saw that the guy, his units do double damage. his units do double damage, but they take double damage as well, which I've got to think about, but I think that's insane. Playing against that guy as an AI would be absolutely ridiculous. It's Hideyoshi is the new Japanese leader. That's going to be insane. So I'm really keen to talk about that. But yeah, here's the tier list. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is there anyone you disagree with? You know, Tecumseh. Let me know why I'm wrong about Tecumseh this time around in 2026. But thank you very much for watching, everyone. You know, leave a like if you enjoyed this. Subscribe if you want to see more, of course. And otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thank you, as always, to the channel members who support me month to month, which is Cassius, Interpaladin, Awesome Daisy, Chase Bandy, Tronty Shamal TV, Chris1 Mac, and JLA7. Your support is very much appreciated.